Region 3, Dekalb Central High School in Waterloo. And I'm here to talk to you about service learning, fundraising, career association, do's and don'ts. Just to give you a little background on myself, I have been with JAG since January of 2015. Some of the highlights of our program is every year we've made between $1,000 and $4,000 in fundraising. And we've had 100% of our students participate in some sort of service learning or community service every single year. Some of them don't do all the hours, but we've always have some that everybody at least gets some. I'm kind of here to talk to you guys. A lot of what I've learned is trial and error. So that's kind of where these lists come from. And I'll tell you a little bit about things that I've done that worked well, things I didn't do, and where it was able to improve. I'll try to stop between each, like service learning. I'll do pause for question, fundraising, like pause for questions, and then career association. We'll go ahead and get started. I always recommend that you start small, especially if you're new to JAG. There's a lot to learn at the beginning. So if you're just starting out, think, what can you do at your school? Starting small also helps students see the results of what their labor, the work they're putting in. So some ideas we had to start small. We have a Dress for Success closet here at Dekalb. That was actually a project that one of my students thought would be good, just because she didn't have dress clothes, and that was kind of her senior capstone project, and we carried it on after she graduated and have had it here now for 6 years. So that's just a closet that people could come down if they have an interview or a presentation or something important. They can come down and get dress clothes, shoes, ties to borrow. That's a great project too, because we are able to do laundry here at the high school. So that's something I've been able to teach kids if they haven't done their own laundry. We kind of go through that, go through how to iron, how to tie a tie, all of those things. So it's a great learning tool. Canned food drives. Almost everywhere in Indiana, pretty much around the country, there's a food pantry that's going to need some help. So you can start a canned food drive. Pretty easy to set up, pretty easy to get kids to participate in. Adopt a Christmas Family. I know we have so many agencies that like to help people around Christmas time. I'll talk a little bit about one we do with the ARC. If you guys are familiar with them, that's for people with disabilities. So that's also a relatively easy thing to find no matter what community you may be in. Partnering with another organization in your school. So some of the organizations may have more resources than you or more students to get you started. So we did a canned food drive with the student government this year. So we kind of did a combo project with them, and we, through DeKalb County, like I think it was 1,500 items were donated, and over half of those came from DeKalb. So that was a really nice way to build some relationships and get the canned food drive to be even bigger. Don't think you have to reinvent the wheel. In the beginning, don't be afraid to partner with other organizations like I talked about. Lots of organizations in our area are in desperate need of volunteers, and a lot of times you can just jump on board. Here are some examples. Nursing homes. This wasn't as easy for us to do this year with COVID. However, most years they're happy to have kids come in and volunteer or have us bring Valentine's or something for them. Council on Aging, similar organization here that always needs help. The food banks are always in need of something. Anytime, like throughout the year, they're always wanting either help with a drive or donations. So those are easy ways just to get yourself started. We plan some service learning during school hours. I'm going to talk about a couple, and I have links at the end for these for you guys if you want to do them with your kids. The big thank you. So that's done through the Burt Show, and it's a thing where they try to get every service man and women in the United States to get a thank you letter between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we usually do that in October. Super easy. You just have your kids write letters. Then you can mail them to Georgia. And a lot of local communities will actually pick up letters. Like in Fort Wayne, we can drop them off and they can get them to the big thank you. Cincinnati Children's Hospital, Valentine's, you do this all online, just a few minutes. My kids love doing this. We'll have everybody do one, and a lot of them will do them all through the month of February, just send another one. Positive Post-it notes. This was something that we did where we wanted every student just to get a note of encouragement here at the beginning of the year. So we, with admin permission, were able to put up about 1,200 Post-it notes on our lockers. We kind of varied the message. This is great if your JAG program's new as well, because we would put from JAG. So we knew by the end of that project, 1,200 people had at least seen that JAG was here. Rocks of Strength for suicide prevention. We partnered with some local agencies to do this, and the rocks are basically, we wrote hopeful messages, messages of encouragement. Your story isn't over yet. Use a semicolon, which is really common in the suicide prevention community. So we were able to just make those during school. We took them outside, spray painted them, painted them, and then they got dispersed through our community. And what you could do is you could either take a rock for your own encouragement, you could leave the rock for someone else to find, or you could move the rock to maybe another area, like you took it somewhere. I mean, if you follow on, a lot of organizations do these rocks, and sometimes the rocks can end up all over the United States, which is pretty cool. I mentioned archangels. So instead of doing a Christmas family, we always adopt an individual with a disability that lives in a group home that does not have a family. And what we do for that is, if you have 40 kids, which we usually have about 40 here, we encourage each person to donate a couple dollars, because by the time that's done, we end up with $80 to $100 to go buy this individual Christmas presents. The students really love doing that. They like to see, everything together, read the thank you notes we get. So that's always been a really successful project for us. Teacher Appreciation Week. I know almost everybody's school does something with that. This is a really easy and small opportunity to let the teachers in the building know how much they're appreciated. Just having your kids even just write them a card or a thank you is, a big encouragement and big positive thing to do. We were fortunate to do the Dekalb County Promise. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Dekalb County has one of the lowest rates of graduation from college. And then when people graduate in this county from college, they typically do not stay in this county. So Dekalb County is looking for ways not only to get students involved and engaged in college, but also to get them to stay in our county. So what we were able to do is our county has every student from kindergarten through grade 3 go to Ivy Tech, and they get to do like a college tour, see some of the opportunities, and learn about some careers that are available through college. So through some community partnerships throughout the years that we've developed by doing service learning community service, we were asked to be the volunteers at that event. So we got to help the kids get around, get lunches around, help clean up, set up, and everything. It was a really great event, and we actually did that in September during school. You can't really make it sound like work. You have to emphasize that it's going to be fun. Have students that participate share. Students are more likely to listen to other students than they are to us. That's going to give them more of a buy-in to it. I always wrap up the events with something fun. So especially if we do something after school, we'll all go out to dinner together. We'll go to Starbucks. We may go, mini golf, or we try to do something fun after we've done an event. That's just a way for us to like bond together, and also, for them to know that they're appreciated. And then have your career association plan your events. Less work for you. That will help you find out what your students are interested in and roll with it. Again, students are going to be more likely to engage in an event if it's a cause that they care about. I do make it a requirement. You set the expectation that that's part of JAG. This is kind of what we do in JAG. Students will meet and rise to expectations. I roll that expectation out the first week or so, just so students know what's coming. I tell them, hey, there'll be opportunities throughout this whole year, but just know that by the end of the year, we want you to try to have 10 hours of community service. We create a contract that includes like service learning. With that contract, it's just basically I'm agreeing to do this throughout my school year. And then I have a real basic, like just table set up for each month so they can log their own hours. I also have a way I log the hours, which I'll share a little bit later in the presentation. I don't ever make a certain event required. I have a lot of students that work, so they may not be able to come to an event that we're having, and that's okay. I try to have at least one thing we're doing every month, sometimes two. So the opportunity to get your hours is always present. I tend to try to plan more in March and April a little bit, knowing that some of them may be behind on getting their hours. So once again, I don't make any one event required. I give students their choice and voice. The reason I say that is one event we do is Night to Shine, which is a prom for people with disabilities. Some of my students weren't really comfortable doing that. Some of my students absolutely love that. So that's always, I don't want to make anyone do something that they're going to be uncomfortable with or, you know, not totally good with. So I just make the opportunities always there and never one certain event is required. Always show your enthusiasm. I always make sure I can commit the time to the event as the instructor. I tend to go to every single community service event. If the students arrange an opportunity on their own, I may not, but if it's something I've arranged for our class, I make sure I'm there. You want to have a positive and enthusiastic attitude. Students can always pick up on your energy and they match it. I think that's part of why we've been successful with it. Community service is kind of a passion of mine. It started when I was in high school. I mean, I really love being part of a small community and seeing how, you know, we could do things to make it better. I think because I have that passion, the students see that and they want to do that as well. You don't want to shoot down ideas. So always have yes in your heart. Like the thing I always think is yes and how, or yes and what are we going to have to do? Yes and what is the timeline? So my students, when I first started here, wanted to start a skate park in Dekalb County. And we actually worked on a community project and got a little bit of a grant. And through the years, it wasn't able to be done in 1 year, but between us and other organizations, Auburn now does have a skate park. And it's doing really great, and it's a great resource for our community. I always track their hours. Here's some ideas, spreadsheet posters, tracking in their own binders. I use a spreadsheet. And it's awesome for kids, not just because of the hour requirement, but also because they can use this on resumes or college applications. It's easy to forget though what events you've done and what the total hours are if you're not tracking them. I even have had students, I had a student that graduated in 2018 asked me if I could pull up his community service hours just because he wanted to add some stuff to his resume to make it, you know, a little bit more substantial. So because I have these spreadsheets, I'm still able to provide that information for them. I never shame kids for their lack of hours. I start telling them where their hours are, like in October, November. I send a monthly reminder the second semester, so starting in January or February. If they already have the hours, I don't usually send the email reminder, but if they're low, I'll say, hey, we only have 6 hours. Remember, you were trying to get 10 before May. You know, you make it the expectations clear that this is part of JAG. So whether it's for a grade or you do it as based on an incentive, kids all know. I mean, I've never had really, my kids haven't given me any flack about it because from day one, you know, August 10th, we're talking about, you know, service learning and community service. So remind them all together as a group, but don't harp on a specific student. Don't be afraid to ask. This is what I say, like sometimes you can do things during school hours. One time we were able to go help the American Legion do some landscaping work during school. And I would have known that if I wouldn't have just said, hey, we got this opportunity. I know it's during the school day. Would it be okay if we went from 9 to noon? Reach out to sources. The worst they're going to say is no. I mean, any organization, you can ask to volunteer. The worst they're going to say is, hey, we don't need anyone. Ask for help from your advisory board. So those people in your building that are really invested in JAG are great resources for you to go to as well. Does anyone have any questions about the community service learning part before I go on? Okay, I'm going to go on to the fundraising portion. Make sure you figure out deadlines. Different schools have different deadlines for submitting fundraising. Ask early when your school's is so you don't miss it. At Dekalb, it's June 1st. I know this because, like I said, some things I've learned from trial and error. The first year I was here, I wasn't aware of that, and I missed it. So we had to go to the school board and actually in like September or October get special permission to do a fundraiser. That's a very important thing to know. The school usually in the summer sets that agenda and approves every group's fundraisers for the year. Figure out when you have to start and turn in orders to get product by a certain time. So I use Yankee Candle. So we've sold with them for several years. The first year I did it, I thought as long as we mailed out the brochures, got everything back to, or the orders, if we got everything back to Yankee Candle, as long as it was back there before Thanksgiving, it would be fine. And when they said, yeah, we would get it before Christmas, we did get it before Christmas, but we got it on the 23rd. And we weren't in school, so I had to have students come out or drop things off at their house because it came so late. So now I know, hey, if we're going to sell candles, I want to have it turned in by the beginning of November so we have some leeway with the time. Figure out how long you want to sell something for. I do 2.5 weeks. I have a lot of students in blended families, so that gives them an opportunity to see both sides of their families, through the weekend, through the week. And then usually I never have it due on a Monday because kids will always forget. So we start on a Monday and we usually end on a Wednesday, like a little over 2 weeks later. Don't forget to ask for permission. School board, you have to have that. They just want to make sure that because you're selling with Dekalb High School, that they know that you're selling with, Dekalb High School. Also, you want to ask your management team for Region 3, and I don't know how each region does, but we have a form that we have to fill out about 30 days before a fundraiser, just so that they're aware of what we're doing, what we want to use the money for, if there's any upfront cost, that sort of thing. Do check to see what you can do in your school. So these are kind of easier ways to do this, like selling items at football games, running concession stands. So at Dekalb, we do get paid to run concession stands. So this year we did them for volleyball and football. School cafe, I know a lot of schools have something set up like that. We do not here, but I know several around here do, or around us do. These are easy. They're already established. People are going to be there. So if you're selling items at a football game, you're going to have people walking by to see what you're selling. And often you have a pretty quick turnaround to get your money. Don't forget to see what other clubs are selling. So like I use the example, like if band's selling chocolate bars in the spring, I wouldn't want to be selling chocolate bars at the same time. Basketball, our basketball team sells tumblers, like the tumbler cups. I don't really want to sell those because everyone in the area pretty much has bought from someone in basketball. And tumblers, how many of them are you going to need? Once you've bought a couple, you're probably not going to want to buy them again. Try to be the only group selling your product. So we sell candles. That's pretty much what we've gotten known for. People will know in like October and November that JAG's going to sell candles for Christmas. These are some contests I've had and offered incentives for my students to sell. Top seller gets a $25 gift card. First 10 to sell 10 items are exempt from Dress for Success. So I have the students dress up once a month for points for their grade for Dress for Success. So 1 month when we're selling, usually October, I'll tell them, hey, if you sell 10, first people to do that, you don't have to do it. First person to sell 20 items is a $25 gift card. And I always do a free t-shirt, a free JAG shirt to anyone that sells at least 5 items. That means if they sold 5, especially if we're selling candles, they've more than paid for the cost of that t-shirt. So some students can't sell, either economic reasons, their parents don't want them to. I've had a couple, situations like that. And that's totally okay. I just make sure that they understand that, hey, these are the rewards and expectations that you're going to have. And you may have to pay for your t-shirt because you didn't sell, the t-shirt's going to be $12. Just stuff like that. Just make sure they understand it, but don't harp on anybody who didn't sell anything in the fundraiser. Always, this is just a lesson I've learned. I absolutely require the money to be turned in. when the order form is turned in. So when you turn in your order form, you have to have all the money. If let's say someone forgot to give you a check, or your grandma hasn't paid yet, I'll give a couple day extension, but I have a hard deadline in mind that I know when I need to turn things in. And if that deadline for me is Friday, I tell the students it's Wednesday. So that way, if someone forgets it on Wednesday, they still bring it Thursday. We still have everything turned in by Friday. Also, make sure your students know that they have to take the money up front, and who to make the checks out to. So one year we had I didn't think about that my first year, and a lot of people just wrote it to Dekalb High School. And it was kind of a hassle to get that money to JAG, just because the check was supposed to say, Bright Point JAG Dekalb or Dekalb High School JAG on it. So just that's something, just make sure, like I send home like a paper, and it's like a bright pink, yellow, whatever, that says make checks payable to, Bright Point JAG Dekalb or Dekalb High School JAG. Be careful if you're going to sell items that require you to purchase up front. These can be hard. You can lose money sometimes selling that way. Like, for example, I know when they sell those big candy bars, if you say you're interested, they are mailing you that shipment of candy bars like the very next day after you say you're interested, and you have to sell what you're going to. You have to pay them the money, at least half. Let's say if it's say you're making 40%, they still need that money up front for the candy bars. So if you don't sell them, you're still going to be on the hook for that money. If you do buy upfront items, is it something you'll be able to sell all year? I would definitely, if you're buying stuff up front, steer clear of seasonal stuff. Like, you're not going to want to be trying to sell Christmas items in April or May. All these involve your officers. So we have a position here that is for the head of fundraising. This person kind of makes a chart to keep track of what we're doing. They hype up the class. They help me double count and triple count the money. I also have the treasurer kind of help us count the money. That's to make sure that we are square with it, because it's easy if one person's counting to miss something. This was huge. This is probably one of the most important positions in our office, especially when we do a large fundraiser, because you're going to verify items are there. That student is going to help you do that, and they're going to help you keep track of discrepancies and missing items. Sometimes Yankee Candle would have an item that was out of stock or something, so we had to get a voucher, or we had to let Yankee Candle know, by a certain date that we didn't have items. So we would keep a running list of that, and the student head of fundraising would help me verify that. I never make students do something I'm not comfortable doing. So if I say I'm going to sell, if I tell them I want them to sell at least 10 items, I sell that many items. I always act hyped up. I remind them about what we can do with the money. So we've been able to send 5 students to NSLA in DC. Every year we've been able to have like Panera or something, like a catered initiation ceremony. We've always been able to buy T-shirts. We've been able to buy masks. We're going mini golfing. We go to the zoo. And those things are at no cost to the students because we've raised the money to do them. Do ask your community partners for help. They might be able to let you sell items at their places of business. We had a student that went to a factory in our area and said, told them what she was doing. And they were able to actually let her keep her fundraising form out there. And this kid sold almost $2,000 worth of candles from just that one factory. So, and that's all it was just her asking, hey, she had a relationship there. I think one of her parents had worked there in the past. They may also be willing to promote, tell people that you're selling. They may be willing to fund your group. We had went to Metal Technologies, which is a large factory in our area. And, I first had thought maybe hey, would you guys be willing to let us, get something out here that we're selling? And they just wrote us a check for $500. So that was when we were going to Washington, D.C. You'll never know, though, if you don't ask. We have another group that we volunteer for. We do a carnival for them every year. And we had started out just to do get some community service learning hours. And now they send us a check for $250 to $350 just for our, 3 or 4 hours at the carnival. You don't want to just ask for money though. Make sure you're going to the proper channels, communicate with your school and management. So if you're going to be doing something where you're going to be going out in the community asking for money, definitely make sure you let your admin team, your advisory board, and your management know. Make sure you involve the organization all year. So for Metal Technologies, a couple of my students will have went and worked there. We always have them come in as a guest speaker. We don't just go to them and say, hey, we need money. Make sure that you write a letter. Also, just explaining what you're going to use your funds for if you are asking for donations. And then also have your students write a thank you and a follow-up after that with Metal Technologies and the Dekalb Educators Association. They gave us a pretty large amount, both of those groups did, towards our trip to DC. So we kind of sent them a highlights, and the ladies that went actually went and, did a thank you for them in person. Does anyone have any questions on fundraising?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Would you be willing to share the format that you use for your request?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Are you talking about the one that, like, the letter I would send out to businesses if we were requesting money, or like the one that I would use here with the school and like with our management team where it's like, hey, this is our fundraiser that we want to do through the year?
I was thinking the business, but both would be nice.
Okay.
I thought about sending the management.
Okay.
So
All right. Yeah.
And Andrea, you can send any like documents you have to the state team, and we'll just forward them out with all of our like follow-up materials.
Awesome. Okay. Yep. Thanks. I can do that. All righty. I'm going to go ahead and go on to Career Association. So the Career Association is kind of the avenue that you can get all of these things done. The stronger your career association is, the more you're able to do throughout the year. Once again, these are some things I've kind of learned trial and error with career association. It seems like each year it got better and better because the more your students are invested in it, the better it's going to be. To learn what it is, the JAG Specialist Manual has tons of information. Like they have how to conduct your meeting, how to do the minutes, like a run through of your initiation ceremony. Like kind of like what I'm doing, they have tips and tricks in there too. Have a basic understanding of what it is before you talk to kids. My first year, I started in January and we had a meeting, like we did our officer meeting, and then like in July, I think we met at like a pizza place, and I was like, yeah, it's this organization and it's kind of like student council, but I didn't know enough about it to probably really talk strongly about it. So before you get going and, really get that project going for the year, make sure you're real familiar with what it is. Have an understanding about what you want to accomplish with your career association. So we kind of do it is really tentative. We do like a plan of work throughout the year. There's certain events we do at Dekalb every year. And then there's other things that are just going to come up. And like sometimes I'll just say service, opportunity, and that's where the students can kind of decide what they might want to do throughout the year. Don't be afraid to make it specific to your school. So they have some offices listed in like the manual. Those are just guidelines though, like your program may have different needs. So owning your program, making it your own. So we have added a social media person. I have a person now that's going to be doing photography. The reason is because I forget to update the JAG social media. And it's just easier for me if I have somebody to help me with that. Recruitment, so recruiting students, that's another great position to have. We have a service learning and fundraising chair, which I talked a little bit about. That's been a huge help for me to have somebody, especially with the fundraising, to get that organized and keep it going smoothly. Like I said, a photographer or historian that documents your events. These are all things too that can help you either when you're making a brochure, when you're promoting your program. Having these people in place, it just makes your life easier as a specialist. Do have regular meetings. We try to keep ours in the morning. I try to keep it on like a Thursday. I try to keep the days consistent. I let the officers communicate with, each class in class after the meeting. And then I record that in ENDMS under Career Association. So sometimes your kids don't even have to, you don't have to be like, we're having a meeting of the Career Association. You just say, hey, the officers met and this is what we're thinking we want to do for October. This is what we talked about for the initiation. And then you let the whole class vote. So I always try to give the kids at least a 1 or 2 weeks notice that we're having a meeting. Work with the group schedule. So if most of my kids can't be here after school, most of my students work. So I try to set things up that are convenient for them to be here. Also be flexible. Things are going to come up, and that's okay. Having meetings in the summer, this has been a huge success for me. If I meet with my students at least one time, even if it's just to do something fun in the summer, it helps them be, I don't know, just committed to JAG, committed to the program, and it helps them get excited about what we're going to do through the year. Don't be afraid of having expectations. Make sure the officers know that there's expectations. I always tell students when they run for office that you are going to have to attend some things after school. There's going to be some meetings, either maybe before or after school. Is that something you're okay with? Make sure that they're all attending. I've had it, a few years ago where our president wasn't coming, and it's hard for the rest of the officers to be really engaged and stuff if our president isn't showing up. So then you have to have that difficult conversation if things aren't getting done. So I had to sit him down and be like, hey, are you willing to commit to this? How can I make it so you can, be here more often? How can I help you? Because like I said, it's hard for everyone in the Career Association to get excited if your president isn't. We do just a real basic officer commitment form, kind of what your office is, what we're going to be doing throughout the year. I have them sign it. I've never really had to pull it out and be like, you said you were going to do this and you didn't, but it's just something that helps them, remember that this is a commitment they're making up front. Have an agenda. Work with your president to make sure you have a basic agenda for the meeting. So what do we need to get accomplished? Because when meetings start, especially if your kids are friends like mine, mostly get along really well. Sometimes they don't see each other because they're in a different class period. So it can come down to where we're talking for 20 minutes and we haven't really gotten to anything. So make sure you have at least 1 or 2 things that you want to get accomplished that day. Lay out timelines. That's really important for fundraising, community service events, planning your initiation ceremony. The timelines are huge to help with that. And then we have a calendar. I usually have one on my desk, and we lay out the events for the year. Another thing I do is we have a huge whiteboard in here. So for the month, for right now, I have things that we are doing in June. Though I don't have any students in here right now, I do that for every month. I include too class projects. I include due dates that things might be due. But then I also make sure I highlight our community service events on that. My students have really gotten used to that calendar or schedule of events. If I don't write it up there, if I forget one day, they'll be like, oh, you didn't do the schedule of events for the week. So that's really been helpful for us to keep organized. Always allow, don't get too stuck on agendas. You got to allow for room for delays, convocations, cancellation, testing. Always begin with the end in mind, but be flexible on how you're going to get there. Especially if your kids are newer to JAG, you need to kind of get them more invested in the program. Sometimes you start out with a group and it's great right from the beginning, and sometimes it takes a couple of months to get there to where you're all getting along and working well together. Make sure that you're helping the students prioritize and that they're prioritizing. Because like I said, you want to have a couple things that you have to finish. I always tell them there's certain things that every year we're going to do them. Initiation ceremony, the carnival. These are just things that we know we're going to do every year. So that always has to be on the calendar. We have to be thinking about it when we get close to those events. I elect early. We do ours in May. It's usually students that have been in JAG their junior year. we start talking about what we expect for officers. Like I start kind of introducing that at the beginning of the second semester. You know, think of your students who have been leaders in class and encourage them to run. They may not see that in themselves, but you can see that they're invested and engaged in the program. And those are the best kind of kids to have in as your officers. I try not to have it based on popularity. This can be hard sometimes with student elections, but I have students write a little promo on why they should be chosen. So one way I've thought that we can do that is I read the promo, but I don't tell who it is. So I say, like, these are the ideas of things that I would want to get accomplished throughout the year, but I don't give the name. So it's just candidate 1, candidate 2. I always do the elections just like on a Google form, and it's online and it's anonymous. Not that they're not telling each other who they voted for, but at least helps a little bit. I stress the importance of having officers that will do a good job for our career association. Like, just because you like somebody doesn't mean that maybe they're the best person for the job. But sometimes kids will surprise you. So we had a student that was very popular. He was a little bit of a class clown, and he got elected as the president. And, you know, I sat and had a conversation with him, and he did a great job. I mean, really, he did. He came to almost every after-school event. He always came to the meetings. I think maybe just having that conversation with him too helped to get him to realize, hey, this is important. And he really wanted to do a good job with it as well. Let them make choices. I kind of let them just run the meeting. Even when we're doing the in-class meeting, I let the officers talk, and then the rest of the class just kind of give feedback. It just really makes your job easier. You can hand things over to them. Like I said, the photography at an event, you know, making the post on social media, it's a lot easier for me to have them do it than for me to do that. So you can't give up the reins completely, though. Make sure that they know that there are certain things that have to be accomplished. That's where we have that calendar plan of work throughout the year. Make sure you are communicating your deadlines. That helps keep the rest of the career association on track. The officers know, hey, this is when we need to have things done. I have them on the board so everyone can see. Make sure you ask where we're at on things. Usually, like for me, it's like if we're going to have our initiation ceremony catered, have we decided? When do we need to have an order in by? Have you guys decided what you want to do? You step in with conflict management as needed. I've had that a couple times. You know, you have a few kids with strong personalities together, and that can happen. Just making sure that it's okay to disagree, but we have to be respectful about it. Sometimes we have to rework something. That happened a lot this year with COVID. We would get excited that we're going to be able to do something, and it would get canceled. Or we'd be told, okay, we can't do that because of COVID. So then, okay, what are we going to do to rework that to make it work for us? Don't be scared of failure. Evaluate all your events. Have a journal or a SWOT. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then admit when something could have gone better. I mean, we've had some events that did not go great. I'll tell you guys about one when I show you the pictures. Figure out how to make an event better for the future, because that's always what it's about, is to improve it for the next time you do it. So the events, these are kind of the impact in pictures. And the event, if you see the picture with the kids standing outside, it was ridiculously cold that year. And it was the first year Auburn had done this. So we did a frosty walk to light up our big frosty in the community for suicide prevention. And we got there at 6 o'clock, and we didn't start walking until 7:30. And there was no bathrooms. And it was, like I said, very, very cold. And then we had to walk almost probably a good half a mile through Auburn. And then a lot of the kids had parked back there, so they had to walk half a mile back to their car. So in retrospect, that's an event that I had actually gotten a hold of the people that ran it and said, hey, can you have the fairgrounds at least have a building in there open so the kids could maybe step in from the cold or be able to go to the bathroom. And we also did our county does a tree walk every year at our war museum. So that's our, we did a suicide prevention and awareness trees. That's a topic that my students were very passionate about. So we do a lot of work with that every year. This is also our suicide prevention. This was, we our county had a walk. So these are a few students that came. It was on a Sunday, came to the walk. The rock pictures here, these are the ones I said we just took them outside, put some newspaper down, spray painted, and left throughout our community. And then we all at the end decided to do a little picture. I just liked that. I thought it was something fun. They all wanted to paint hearts and do the picture. And we've used that picture on, like, I think probably about every promo thing that we've released for our JAG program has that picture on it. So this is My Community, My Vision. It's a project we did in 2016. This project I kind of told you guys about, where they wanted to add a skate park and, you know, do some like a community garden or something in Auburn. So I have a link for all of this too at the end of the presentation. The group here, they got to go present that to the city council and the mayor. So that was really a great opportunity for them to know that people in those positions did care what young people had to say. And then these are JAG rules for success. So every year we do something like this, where each class or group gets to pick 2 or 3 of their top ones, and then together I read them as a class and we vote on the top 10. So that's just something, and that's always been a good way at the beginning of the year to get your students engaged. These are pictures. We've done a lot of volunteering with the Eckerd Public Library. And our library actually caught on fire, so they needed a lot of help throughout the last couple years. So the other great thing with that is we have a good relationship with Eckerd Public Library. So now whenever we need an internship site, they're always good to have our kids. And almost every kid that's came from JAG gets hired in to work at the library. This is a bowling. We do Big Brothers for Big Sisters. This is, like I said, we have events we do every single year. That's one of them. Always pretty well attended event. Kids have a lot of fun with that one. This was probably 2 of the projects I'm most proud of. Was we did a music festival for suicide prevention, and I had 22 out of my 40 students show up, and it was on a Saturday, and most of them stayed all day to help with that event. So that's what the picture on the left is, and then the picture here on the right is the Dekalb County Promise. That's where we got to go to the IB Tech and help, lead that event. That was also kind of due to partnerships we'd made with our community foundation. And we had a student there that was an intern through JAG, and she did a fantastic job. And like when they were talking about throwing this big event together, Shelby just said, well, Mrs. Freeze could do that. Like, she has like 40 kids. She could bring everybody, So that's how that event got to happen, and we got to be a part of it. And then, so these are just some resources at the end. Volunteer Match, if you haven't heard of it, you can kind of tell them what you're looking for, your area, what you might like to do, and they can send you like matches for places that are looking for volunteers. The big thank you, that's the letters for the servicemen and women. Cincinnati Children's Hospital Valentines. Very easy, quick project. It probably only takes 5 minutes to submit your Valentine. Innovate Within, that's a project. I believe it's ran with Ball State. This is good not just for community service, and this is also really good for like entrepreneurship opportunities. Like when your kids do business plan for CDC, they have a lot of great opportunities with Innovate Within. Farnsworth Fund, this is a thing that's in Northeast Indiana, where they actually encourage young people to have ideas to better our community, and they can bring them forward for grants. Also, young people that have good ideas for businesses, they have like small business loans or scholarships that they give out. This is My Community, My Vision Indiana chapter that was ran through Ball State. That was the project where my kids got to actually develop like a community plan. And we got to work with our mentor, which was a student that was attending school at Ball State, who had actually grown up in Auburn. Launch Dekalb County, similar thing. I don't know if all counties do this, but that's like a kind of like a Shark Tank business thing. And that event gives out tons of money and scholarships as well for students. And then I put Great American Fundraising. That's another group we've used, really easy to work with. I took off Yankee Candle because after COVID, unfortunately, we have to kind of rework ours because the Yankee Candle is no longer doing fundraising anymore. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions? I was trying to kind of pay attention to the chat box, but I probably missed some.
Yeah, Andrea, just so you know, I was like texting Christine and said, Andrea is giving a master class in career association. I mean, all these things are like JAG specialists, you know, not so much the very first thing, because that's like a lot to take in, but like, man, you are 6 months into being a specialist and like you need to watch this presentation. So like really, really great job. Like
Thank
big
you.
thank you on behalf of the state team for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of it, like I said, I'm glad that I can share. Most of it was things that I did wrong that now I know, oh, wow, that didn't work that way. So yeah, just stuff I learned on the job that I wanted to give that information and resources to others.
Hey, Laura, do you want to pop the survey into the chat so everyone can access that?
Go ahead and do that. And because we're recording, if you want to come back to this information at any time, we're going to put all of these on the YouTube page.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody, please take a minute to submit information to the Google Forms that chat or the survey that Laura popped in there. But definitely, if you have any other questions, check in with Andrea. You can ask them now, or we can ask them separately, and we'll make sure we share out all the resources and other documents we promised during our discussion. I think we're almost done, and then it's lunchtime for everyone, so we'll see people back at 1:30, I believe it is, for session 3. So thanks again. Big round of applause, Andrea. I don't know if you can hear or see people.
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Reactions. There we go.
Yeah, thank you.